Good evening. I now call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. Today's date is September 24th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rudy, roll call, please.
Chairman Hanchey.
Here.
Vice Chair Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Callan. 6 present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the September 10, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rudy, can we get a roll call, please?
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next item is public hearing, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case P-24-70-AM as in Mary, a proposed text amendment to amend zoning violation penalty fees to match property maintenance penalty fees. Nick?
Thank you.
Mouthful.
It was.
Yeah, and I'm going to be repeating a lot of those words tonight.
All right.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm Nick Leftwich, planner for the City of Apache Junction. So tonight, I am presenting text amendment case P-2470-AM, a proposed text amendment to the civil penalty fees of both the zoning violations and the property maintenance violations. For some background on the matter, staff received direction to staff from City Council last month to review the zoning violation civil penalty fees and the property maintenance violation civil penalty fees, since there are differences between the two fee structures, despite the enforcement procedures of the two violation types being essentially the same. At that time, we were also directed to consider the option of increasing the penalty fees as a means of discouraging future code violations. So this here is the current fee structure of both the civil violation civil penalty fees and the property maintenance violation civil penalty fees, which have currently an escalating fee structure based on how many violations occur within a consecutive 24-month period from the time of the first violation. So as you can see, zoning violation civil penalty fees for the first and second offense are exactly $100 behind the property maintenance violation civil penalty fees. There is a little bit of a difference within the procedure of the third offense. Currently, when there is a property maintenance code violation, the third offense would be tried as a Class 1 misdemeanor, which has a criminal fine of $1,000, while the third offense for a zoning violation is just $750 as a civil violation fee. Now, I will also note, though, that under current code, any zoning violation, whether it's the first offense up to a third offense or however many number it is, at the discretion of our city attorney, could be tried the same way as a Class 1 misdemeanor. And in the case of zoning violation fees, they're set by state law to have a potential threshold fee level of a fine of $2,500. That's ARS for a Class 1 misdemeanor. And that's what existing code is for criminal zoning violations. Yes.
Before you go
Chairman.
forward, could you define both of these? What is a zoning code violation and what is a property maintenance code violation?
Yes, Chair. Vice Chair Parker, thank you. A zoning violation, so within the zoning ordinance, there are certain categories of things like parking. There are zoning codes regarding like visibility, where you have like your wall, depending on if there's like setback violations, depending on where you build something. If you build something without a permit and we're making sure it's built in a proper location and things like that. That's what would constitute a zoning violation. If someone doesn't meet like setbacks, or if there is like one of the common zoning codes that we see is something about like the RVs. That was one of the recent code amendments that was done to allow more RVs on the larger lots. But let's say you have like 6 RVs all parked on a single family property in the middle of a subdivision. Because that's a parking regulation in the zoning ordinance, that would be a zoning violation fee. On the other hand, the zoning code doesn't say anything about like weeds or property maintenance standards. So on a different section of the city code, it's in volume 1, which is the standard section of the city code that covers all the laws. There is chapter 9, has to do with health and sanitation. A subsection of that is property maintenance. And so that's why within volume 1 of the city code, there are property maintenance codes and violations to those. Like if your entire property is covered in weeds that are like 6 feet high, fire violation or potential health violation, those are the kinds of violations that fall under property maintenance codes. So different ways of affecting the property and evaluating the property, but
Thank you.
yes, thank you. I will note, having discussed all this with our code enforcement officials, they have noted, however, that 90% of our code violation cases close before the court imposes any of these fines. Furthermore, 95% approximately never escalate past the first violation. And they said only about 1 or 2 a year ever reach a third offense. So just another aspect to note as part of this. So to address the direction to staff, we've prepared 3 recommended options, of which tonight the commission may choose which you recommend to the city council. The first of these, option 1, would be to update the zoning violation civil penalty fees to match the property maintenance violation civil penalty fees. This would change for the zoning violations, the first offense from $250 to $350, second offense from $500 to $600, and the third offense would be $750 to $1,000. Though in this case, that would still be a civil fine rather than a criminal one. However, with the second option, which proposes an increase of both the zoning violation civil penalty fees and the property maintenance violation civil penalty fees to a higher value, it would make the first offense within a 24 consecutive month period, it would raise both of those fees to a $500 level. The second offense would be $750. And then in this case, to match the procedures, the third offense of both violation types would be tried as a class 1 misdemeanor, and the number of $2,500 is the standard threshold of it cannot exceed $2,500 per Arizona state law regarding the fines of a class 1 misdemeanor. And then the third option would simply be to propose to not have any change to the penalty fees. This is just, again, the image from before showing what we currently have. So with this, the draft text amendment P2470AM will be forwarded to the City Council with the recommended option chosen by the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. Quick summary, option 1 is matching the 2 fees, option 2 is increasing the fee categories to a higher value, and option 3 is just no changes. The City Council will be reviewing this first on October 14th on a Monday for a work session, and then they will actually have the public hearing to vote on it on November 5th on Tuesday night. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help and answer at this time.
What provoked this?
Yeah.
So, in this case, I know one of our City Council members was reviewing this, and we received the direction to that last month. Rudy, do you happen to have any context if there was a specific
Yes,
incident?
the whole issue kind of started out with some of the violations and some of the property cleanups that we've been doing around town. I think you folks have heard of the Community Development Corporation, the CDC, the Friends of AJ. The CDC in particular sometimes gets involved in these major cleanups. For lack of a better term, some of these hoarding properties. It's a drain on community resources. There was a concern that sometimes there doesn't seem to be an incentive for folks, for the worst of the violators, to clean their properties up. And it was thought that, or for some people who do have means, it's easier for them to pay the fines than to comply with the code. So the idea was, okay, well, if we raise our fees, then maybe folks would be more inclined to comply with the codes, clean up their properties, and not have the code officers, spend weeks, possibly months, taking the case through the system, all the way through the system to get it to the court. And sometimes these properties are cleaned up like the week before they have to go to court, and it's a drain of staff time, drain of staff resources.
3 weeks
Uh,
later, they're back to exactly what they were in the first
Exactly.
place.
Those are the types of concerns that we heard. We took it to council. Council agreed that maybe this is something that we should look into, and that's why we're before you here today. Now, one thing that Nick didn't mention is the Volume 1, Chapter 9 item is really just a recommendation, because the planning and zoning, it's not the zoning code. The Planning and Zoning Commission probably won't deal with Chapter 1 very often, but we're bringing them both to you because of the matching nature. It's the same process, the same code people involved, the same steps to get Chapter 9 violations and Chapter 1 violations through the system. So the codes that you would deal with and recommend changes to is really the Volume 2 zoning ordinance violations. But we're bringing them both to you because it's all part of the same package deal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a thought, a comment, or something. I really like the third offense on the second option, the fact of bringing either one of them to court as a criminal fine, because that third violation on either of them means somebody's just dug in and said, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think we need to be really tough on that third violation. I really do. I think that third violation has to be something they don't want, period. It's one thing to say, I'll pay the $200 or $300 or whatever bucks. It's another thing to be hit with a criminal violation. That's a whole different ballgame. So just putting it out there as a thought.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's another cost to this. It's also my office, once they get involved, especially on the zoning cases. Those are not easy cases.
True.
First of all, you got to educate the judge. The judge may not know what a zoning case is. That's possible, whatever judge it is. And remember, it may not be the presiding judge that handles the case. It might be a contract attorney that's covering for the judge. And those are usually civil attorneys. They don't know what a zoning violation means, some of them. So there's the time prep for that, and also to get the witnesses prepped. Even city staff, a lot of city staff members have never been to court. And so a good example, I had a case recently, and yes, I did handle a case, believe it or not, even though I have a prosecutor. But I handled this one because it was very unique. It was a unique code case involving birds. And it fell within the zoning code. It was a second violation. The person had agreed to the first one already. And then we had a second one, and they didn't really want to agree. We were going to go to trial. We prepped for trial. In fact, Rudy can attest to it, that I had Rudy in the courtroom also, and I was going to need him to attest to what the zoning code means, what the zoning was for that property. I had to have certifications of the code, because that's what you have to present to the judge on the date of the violation, that it was the code is certified for that date, not just 6 months later or 3 months later. And so it takes time to go through that. So there is a cost there. You never get the full cost back. But if I could just be heard on the third offense, I think that criminal misdemeanor is needed for the third offense. Because by this time, you've gotten so far with these people. And remember, this is only like 1%. I don't think it's 10%. I think it's more like 1% that actually get to my office of the code cases. Mm-hmm. So these people are dug in. They're the most stubborn people. Some of them are constitutionalists, and they believe the code does not apply to them.
Absolutely.
So when you have to deal with that, there's a lot more time preparation. And so the criminal part, I think that's what you should do, in my opinion. Right. It might be different than other cities. Nick can attest to that. I think they're all over the place.
They are, definitely.
But I think out here we have more stubborn people.
Well, we do. We have people who have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years, like me.
Well, let
and
me
like Joe.
ask you this too. You can have multiple criminal
offenses with this too, couldn't you?
Oh, sure, and actually there is,
'Cause you could stack charges for different,
you certainly can, and in the
Different.
code itself, I think it gives my office, we don't even have to go civil.
right?
But if code compliance gives me a civil ticket, I'm going to do what they want because they
Right.
are really.
I'm just saying if we have a super habitual offender to where we wanted to get tough, we could.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, if they get thrown in jail for 6 months, maybe they'll
yeah.
change their mind.
Jail scares people, even though many judges don't put people in jail, even for a zoning case.
I'm just saying we could go that route too, to where we could
Right.
put a little more teeth
Well-
after somebody if we needed to.
Yes, and also a judge could say, you know what, I'm going to put you on probation
Yeah.
for 3 years. You could do that on a class 1
Right.
misdemeanor. You cannot do that on civil cases. So all you do is pay
Right.
the fines. And
'Cause-
then, once you get to the misdemeanor, then now they're looking at jail time, probation, and other things. The judge can order them to, say, get
Right.
rid of that animal or to actually do something. Whereas if it's just a civil case, it's only the fines.
Right. Because I think we need something a little bit in between here. I don't want to step up so hard for the first person, maybe.
Well, if we had the option 1 fines on the first offense, the second offense, and then the option 2 for number 3,
Right.
that's what I was kind of thinking.
Also, the law changed on a misdemeanor.
Right.
Back in the late 90s, it used to be $1,000. That was the cap. Our code never really caught up to that,
Right.
from what I've seen, and it's still $1,000. So that's why the $2,500 is fully recommended.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea. I like the idea of combining those two.
Yeah, because I don't want to really hammer the first people,
Yeah. First time out, you got people who just, for whatever reason, they let it go. Not the guy across the street from me. We're not talking about him. I want him on this third one, okay, guys?
But
The third one is his.
Just remember, though, yeah, it's the first offense, but remember, it took a lot to even get there.
Oh, tell
So
me
they
about
were
it.
given, code compliance gives them all sorts of,
They have
time.
30, 60
And I
days
understand that,
to-
but-
to
So that
do
is a-
something.
they get a lot more time than that sometimes, especially when they say, I have an emotional support need for that particular
Yes.
thing. So you've got to deal with that. So this is not like the first time someone gets in trouble.
No, I understand that too, but looking at where we're at with other municipalities and stuff too, I want to stay in line with that as well.
Plus the fact, you give that first time guy the opportunity to maybe clean it up before he even gets to the fine.
I mean, that's
And
my
if he
thought.
does get to the fine, then at least the 350 isn't gonna kill him, but, and the guy who wants to just pay the fines, fine, you just pay the fine the first time and the second time and the third time, you're gone, buddy. Third time's charm.
So there are a lot of these cases that never get to actually paying a fine. If they,
The vast majority, what'd you say,
90% or
1%
something.
or whatever?
Yes, Chair Hanchey, Commissioner Cantwell. They had, our code compliance officers had noted that, let me pull up what I had. So I had an estimate, just about 90% of the cases are closed before they're ever actually taken to court. And that would be the case, like, let's say someone receives a notice of violation, and then they clean up their property according to the notice of violation. It says, hey, this is an issue, they're alerted, they move it, they remove it, or do whatever they need to do to clean it up. So most of our cases, vast majority of our cases, end before they're ever taken to court. And then and before the court ever issues the first offense fine even. And then to my knowledge, at least 95%, as Joel said, maybe even 99% don't escalate past that. And I was told only 1 or 2 are tried on a criminal level a year.
Right.
So earlier, you said that under the zoning violation, you have the option to do the criminal court on violation on the first, second, or third offense. Is that correct?
Yeah, if it comes to my office, there's 2 ways to get to court. One is you directly cite somebody. That's one way. The other way is you don't cite the person, you go back and you put together what's called a long-form complaint. That can be done on a civil and/or criminal charge. If it comes to my office, the prosecutor gets it, and the prosecutor can say, you know what, I think this is, you've given the person so many chances, I'm going to go misdemeanor. First time. But usually, the prosecutor is not going to do that. The prosecutor usually goes with what staff desires. I'm just saying the option is there, however.
And then we've kicked around at 90%, and then in the packet, I think it said 95% of the cases don't get to, I don't know, to
The court.
penalty phase. How many of these violations do you get a year in total? What are we talking about? Is it 10 a year and one of them makes it through, or, I mean, that would be 90%.
Code, I think last year handled about 2,500 cases.
2,500?
And how many of those went to court? Joel would know better than I. Probably a handful. And like I said, like we said, the intent of code compliance is not to fine people, but to get voluntary compliance. And most people, you know, have common sense and, oh, okay, I'll clean it up, no problem, problem's over. These fines really are for the worst of the violators, folks who just do not want to cooperate, get multiple warnings, multiple letters, multiple weeks to clean up or resolve the situation, and they just don't for whatever reason.
So it sounds like the existing system's pretty much working. Is that fair to say? I mean, if only a couple of them.
As far as the voluntary compliance, yes. The worst of the violators, you know, the fines probably need to be adjusted, and that's why, you know, staff was approached about possibly revising the fees.
Okay. I don't know. I'm reluctant to penalize the citizens of the community. If we have a system that works, why do we need a bigger hammer? I don't know where I'm at.
Well,
If it's not working, we need a bigger hammer, but if it is working, what's the point?
it sounds like in the vast majority of cases, it's working because it never gets to the first offense.
So why would we want to jump it all up?
And then, you know, you're reserving these fines for the bad actors.
Well, and that's kind of like my thought was, let's keep the first two where they were, and then
Yeah.
let's increase that third option for the bad actors. That way they do have that hammer they can now bring into play for them. That was my thought anyway. So now they do have a hammer for those when they need it.
And if there's only 1% who actually get to that point, then
They're gonna
it's
get
there.
anyway. Yeah.
It's there. I think having that piece handy in case it's needed, but you're giving them, it takes 6 months to get from that first letter to go to court on the number 1 offense. Believe me, there is no way that you can even do 3 in 2 years. Not as slow as it takes all of this to go through. You guys would have to really push to get the 2-year mark and have a third offense in that area. So, yeah, it's just something to, I think, have there. It's there in case we need it. If we don't, great, fine. We've wasted some ink.
Well, yeah, because if only 1% is making, we're not really affecting the the cooperative residents.
Right.
You want something that's gonna hammer the ones that don't listen.
The babies either.
No, it's called our resident handlers.
So what I'm hearing, though, if I'm hearing correctly, is that it seems the consensus is to keep the first and second where they are right now. Is that what I'm hearing? And then put a hammer on the third?
I think so.
Vice Chair Barker, can you clarify what you mean by keeping first and second? Because
First
we
and
have two
second
different
offense,
penalties structures.
Not matching the 250 and the 350, 500, 600 from what we have right now.
Vice Chair, you said not matching?
Yeah, they
Okay.
wouldn't be matching.
We don't want to
They
change
would be
it.
exactly what
Okay.
they are right now, with only the third offense being impacted by this.
Let me ask this question of staff. Which do you consider a more egregious offense, the code or the maintenance?
Well, it depends on who's affected. Property maintenance can be a dangerous building. It can be, inoperative vehicles. It can be a house that's not being maintained. And in the zoning ordinance, it could be a use that's not allowed. It could be an unpermitted business. It could be other types of violations. The property maintenance ones are probably the ones that are most closely associated with health and safety issues.
So therefore, a bigger hammer would be justified.
And that's maybe one of the reasons why there's a disparity between the two fees. Even though there's the same process, the property maintenance fees are a little higher.
That's kind of what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. I don't have a problem with separate or raising them up, raising the zoning up to the property maintenance. I do like the idea of the criminal on the third offense on both of them.
Yeah, that was my thought, given the criminal on number on the third for both.
Yeah, I would tend to make it 350, 600 and criminal in both cases, though. Just to give you a bigger hammer on the zoning. And not, that way you're consistent and somebody can't say,
Well, no, that's the way it is right now currently.
well, no, the way,
That's the way it is.
So that
Yeah.
would be option
The
2.
difference.
yeah,
But giving it over here.
So I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing some people saying leave the first and second offense exactly the way they are today and add the criminal to the third offense. And then I'm hearing match the two fees, zoning and property maintenance, and then hit the hard one on third. So which way do you want to go?
I say leave the
I
first.
know you are, and that's, I'm trying to get enough of a consensus
I
to
say
build that motion.
Leave them the way
Okay.
they currently are,
Okay,
with the exception of
okay,
the last.
Leave the first two offenses right
The
where
way
they're
they
at.
okay.
Add the
Gotcha.
criminal charge on the
Gotcha.
property violation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but we still have to do call to public.
But can you increase,
Call
can you
that
increase it to the $2,500?
Yes, increase it to the $2,500 and the criminal penalty.
Yeah, so the first offense stays the 250 and the 350. The second offense is 500 and 600. And the
Correct.
third
Anything
offense
else,
is
Nick?
criminal 2,500 on both.
Chairman Hanchey, no, nothing to add.
All right.
I mean,
Badly are we
I mean, if we're getting
Right,
one out of
this way, since
100
you've given us options
people
1, 2, and
getting
3, but you didn't
to
give us
court,
1A.
Commissioner Kamo, you're at the liberty to.
I don't know.
Ultimately, we provide recommendations, but the Planning and Zoning Commission
Right,
may, of course, make your own recommendation.
right.
Page 3.
All right.
Got it?
My deal is if it's working, why are we gonna bump it all up and make everybody worse?
Right. So I'm gonna now call it, or I'm now gonna open to the public portion of the hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak?
Can we limit this to an hour, please?
Again, anybody from the public? Anybody
run
from the
out
public?
You want to go
Alright.
gather people?
I now close the public.
Oh, shoot, I didn't get out there quick enough.
All right. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. Okay, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the city of Apache, to the Apache Junction City Council, that the fees remain fees for the first and second offenses of zoning violation and property maintenance violations remain as they are today, and that the third offense become the number 3 option on option 2. Clear enough? Okay. Of text amendment case P-24-70-AM, an amendment of the Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation, Article 9-1, Property Maintenance Standards, 9-1-4, Enforcement and Abatement, and City Code Volume 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 1, Zoning Ordinance, Article 1 through 16, Administration, 1-16-16, Violations, Penalties, and Enforcement, as described in the attached text exhibit.
Second.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker.
Yes.
So move, Mr. Chairman. Like Nick said, this will go to City Council work session on October 14th and for their public hearing on November 5th.
Thank you, Rudy. Old business, there is no old business this evening.
Sir?
New business, there is no new business.
No, sir.
Information reports, nothing. Right.
I do have one item on, or a couple of items in the director's report, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I think Julie forwarded you some information on Proposition 486. We were just asked to get the word out there. It's the Pinal County road tax, I think. Makes a difference to our public works folks on maintaining streets, that kind of thing. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, please look it over. And second thing is the board and commission interviews are in October. A couple of you, unfortunately, or at least one of you is not coming back,
Do
unfortunately.
we know who? I don't know.
Mr. Cantwell did not re-up. So we'll have at least one new commissioner come November. Anybody else not re-up?
I don't
Dirk?
know.
Dirk didn't, Ms. Commissioner Begeman did not re-up either. So we'll probably have two new commissioners in November.
I need. Well, if you find out I need to re-up, would you let me know?
I think you're
You
next,
think they would have told us?
next year, Robin.
Your term expires 2025, October 31st.
Okay,
2025.
next year. Next year.
Mine's next year, too.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. Do we have a motion to select the next meeting date?
Okay,
I'll do it. I'll do it
okay,
since you've
he's
done
gonna
everything
do it.
else. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on October 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Bigelow.
Yes.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. I now adjourn the meeting at 7:34 p.m.